Okay, so why don't we start and you tell me how your management team is constructed in terms of a male-female balance, and whether you see differences in the individuals in your team.
Sure, yeah, it's a good question. We've got about almost half our executive team are women, a little less than half, 43 or 44%, I think was the last check. And our company is very close. It's about 50-50 throughout the organization, slightly skewed more to male. But it's, I see way more individual styles than I do gender-based styles. There's a lot of talk about empathy and a lot of the sort of more female characteristics being needed for managers of all types. And there's guys on our team that are tremendous at some of that, and there's women on our team that aren't as much that
no, I
stereotypical.
completely agree. I mean, I think the thing for me is that agencies are it's not so much the one leader at the top, the agencies are teams.
Yeah.
And the key to that is getting a real blend and balance in the team. Not just from a gender perspective, but from a personality trait perspective.
Totally.
So we did quite an interesting exercise where we tested all our management team through the Myers-Briggs process. Yep. And it was really interesting because you could see why people were taking different positions on things when we were debating how to run the agency, and it helped us to understand what was important to different individuals in the team and realise that what they were interested in and was important to them was completely different to what another member of the team felt.
That's interesting, yeah.
It feels to me that it's more about balance throughout rather than particularly a gender balance, I think.
I think I would agree with that we've got quite a strong personal passion, personal inspiration component to how we even talk about the agency. So it's not an agency that does something, it's an agency made up of 700 individuals that bring their own passions and inspirations to work every day. And it's that collection. So diversity of all kinds is something we're looking for, from interest to gender to religion to whatever ethnicity. We want it all.
I think that's right. I mean, one of the things we've done within the group that I work for, which is Engine. So my boss, the Engine CEO, is a woman. So Debbie Klein. In fact, she's the Drums Woman of the Year. I'll drop that in for Debbie. Okay. So she is passionate about making sure we grow our female talent, and we have women in senior positions in the agency. And I think, despite the fact that I'm pretty sure all leaders would agree with us that gender is largely irrelevant and you just want the best person to do the job, we still find it quite difficult to somehow, as an industry, retain women in the very top positions. And so we have done some things at Engine to almost proactively promote and support the middle management layer. Have you done anything like that, or do you not find the same problem in your market?
No. Yeah, I mean, we're still close to 50-50, so I don't think we're having as much trouble retaining, but certainly in the industry, and you see in the world, I mean, it's 4% of Fortune 1000 CEOs are women. I mean,
it's more at that very top level rather than throughout the...
Exactly, and I don't think it's all that well balanced in our industry, although I think actually in marketing it's better than in the Fortune 1000. It's an interesting dilemma. I'm actually part of a group within Omnicom called Omni Women that's sort of looking at how do we help facilitate and foster more super senior positions for women.
So that sounds like the same kind of thing.
It is. So it's quite new and formative, and there's a lot of inspiration involved and identifying that talent. And there's life. I mean, a lot of women have kids and don't come back, or they take time off, or they make a career lifestyle decision that says, I'm not going to go 110% for the rest of my life and miss my kids growing up.
Yes. Yeah.
But we're seeing more guys make those decisions now too.
Absolutely.
So I think it's going to get more interesting as the convention there shifts to the dad being the sort of the caretaker at home.
Yes, and I think also we're also seeing within the 20-somethings a shift in terms of the way they judge their careers. So we'll have someone very talented come in and say, I'm resigning, and you'll say, oh no, where are you going? You can't possibly do that. And I'll say, well, I'm just going to live in the Bolivian jungle for a year, and then I'll come back and do something else. So there's a whole other issue beyond gender about keeping that generation interested and motivated, because the way they look at their careers is very different. As you say, both men and women, I think.
Tell me, because that's absolutely true. It's a different set of values. It's a different set of motivators that the millennial group, I guess, has. I like to call them those kids to cement the fact that I'm now old.
Yeah. Yeah, I probably should say I've been in the industry for 20 years because people think I'm about 14 normally when I do these interviews and things.
You don't look like you've been in the industry.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah. So what about, let's talk about leaders that we've worked for, maybe. So rather than thinking about our own individual stars, which we'll probably both agree are absolutely fantastic.
Perfect.
Perfect, regardless of gender.
Yeah.
I feel that the best leaders that I've worked for, whether they've been male and female, have been the people who've built strong teams rather than trying to be everything on their own.
No, and you see people get in trouble too, and start doing it all on their own. Stop, forget that it's essential to have all the pieces assembled and not be all the pieces yourself. Yes. Including me sometimes.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think, but you're right. I mean, it's the strength of your team is a testament to your leadership, I think, and when we're struggling, it becomes obvious. And it's a bit of a vicious cycle too, because you're so busy you don't have time to go find and develop a great team. But you're never not going to get busy if you don't have a great team. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. One thing I would say is I do think it can be unhealthy when you have only one sex working on an account or an account team. So if you've got 6 men all working together or 6 women all working together, it can be unhealthy. I think it does work better when there's at least one member that
I agree. We've actually got.
I think people behave slightly differently when they're in a group of just their own sex.
I don't doubt that one bit. I think that's true. We've got an interesting situation where we've got a huge number of the women on our executive team are all in the same office, and it's just fluke. But our Chicago office is run by a bunch of women, and some of the other offices have a lot more guys, and in total it's pretty close. But geographically, it's not very well distributed. But that it stems from wanting the best possible person in every position, not trying to establish some quota and put a token girl here and a token girl here and that sort of thing. So it just happened that way. But it's interesting. The dynamic is a little bit interesting that you got, the tech guy is kind of the lone male in Chicago, which is just so flipped to, most women's experience, I think, growing up in their career.
Yeah, so it'd probably be interesting to get his perspective.
He doesn't mind at all.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
So Matt, tell me, a little bit about your style, your decision-making style, your leadership style, and whether you think there are elements of that are very specifically male, or whether you've got sort of a generic, or is there a difference at all?
Okay, I think probably my team would say that I'm quite calm, almost to the point of being emotionless. And actually, my manager director, I think we're a very good team together. Because I think we complement each other, and I think that's the key to it, rather than the fact that I don't think my style is particularly male, neither do I think my MD's style is, but I think we've both got a different approach that
your MD's a man?
Builds on the other, yeah. So Simon, we work well together as a combination, I think. So I think I wouldn't say that my style in any way was particularly. I wouldn't define it as having anything that's uniquely male about it, really. I mean, I don't know. Would you say the same about your own style? How would your team describe you?
I don't want to go there. Yeah. But, I think probably there are things that I do that are female. I mean, it's certainly been a conversation in some of these other senior leadership discussions I've had, and that there's just a bit of a natural, quite a strong, I think, self-awareness, ability to, and I see guys that do this extremely well, but maybe less often. I think it's the one stereotype I would probably say has more truth to it than a lot of the others, is that there's a self-perception and I think probably a little bit more of a read on how people are reacting to every single nuance in the room that can turn into self-criticism and a lot of the things that women kind of get tagged for, which is totally true too. But I think probably there's a little bit of that in my style that might differentiate it from men, but I'm also decisive. I'm not, you also hear that women don't make decisions, and a lot of the negative side of that. I'm absolutely impatient, absolutely not fantastic at nurturing and that sort of thing. Kind of a bit of a.
Yes, I mean, it's interesting because I would say, so we've just hired a man to come in and run lead our digital development, I suppose you could say.
Yep.
And he is a lot of his strengths, I think, are strengths that if you rate them on a piece of paper, people might say that's more of a female strength. So it's very much about nurturing the team, building a spirit together, working together, rather than anyone being out for themselves.
Right.
Which is great, but I think again that just shows really that I think it's about personality types rather than gender. I really do.
I do too, and a lot of the studies that one of the big traits being empathy that gets talked about a lot as a female trait, but that all leaders need. Mm-hmm. And I think that's totally right. Yes, it's typically or stereotypically considered a female trait, but that doesn't mean it's not a good trait, and it doesn't mean it's not a trait that's present in both genders when it's working, and when you're missing empathy completely, it's obvious, and it's a failure. As a manager, for certain, as a leader, even no empathy whatsoever is a short job. I think
so. The other thing I think is that maybe there's a difference in the types of leaders that occupy senior positions in our business, in the creative agency business, versus construction, or because our whole business is built on relationships and
collaboration,
reputation, and I think there might be other industries where a more stereotypically macho style you might be able to be successful with that just because of the dynamics of the industry.
Right.
Whereas I think if you wandered around bawling everyone out every 5 minutes, half your agency would resign and go and work with someone else.
Totally.
So maybe there's an industry dynamic as well, which means that both sexes need to have that blend of skills, and it means that men have to have more empathy than they might do in other industries.
For sure. Agency size too, I think. We both have, mid-size, I guess, 700-person agencies kind of thing that aren't super hierarchical. There aren't. I mean, it's our place is casual. I'm sure yours is too, and approachable and mixing and collaborative and just it's a people business. So having those stereotypical macho is a great word for it. Those things you consider like uber male characteristics don't necessarily fly in a shop like ours anymore.
Yeah, and actually you could probably, thinking about our client base and all of the clients I've worked with over the years, I think in a way you could pick organisations and perhaps characterise them as more male or more female in their approach. So the culture of the organisation.
Yeah, sure.
So I'm sure you've worked with organisations where there's a lot of politics, and you might describe it as being more macho. Everyone's out to kill the person on the next desk to get promoted.
Eat each other.
And then there are other organisations where there might be more bureaucracy. It might be slower. It might be maybe a more consensual, emotional place. So maybe there's an organisational thing as well that tend to attract those types, regardless of gender.
Well, that's interesting. I have no desire to say which client is which on camera.
So Dianne, if you had to pick one thing that was a difference, you think, just one thing you think might be a difference in male and female leaders, what would you choose?
I think I would have to admit that it's that first perception when somebody meets me and I'm a female CEO. And I get a lot of different reactions, a lot of them very positive, occasionally sort of a little bit surprised that it's a chick in charge. But we're seeing more and more of our clients be senior women, and I think it also has advantages in some contexts. But I think style is so individual, but that you can't change that first perception, because people do react, invisibly. Yes. What about you, Matt? If you had to pick one thing, what would it be?
Well, it's interesting what you say about perception, actually, because I think that's true of everybody, whether you're a man or a woman in the agency CEO position. And I would say, actually, that for me, I look relatively young for someone who's been in the business 20 years and is an agency CEO. And I would say I would probably have the same feeling that you have when you go and meet someone for the first time, that they're judging you very quickly in those first few moments. And obviously then over time, they realise what you can deliver for them, how you can help their business, and that's how they judge you ongoing. But those first few moments are always quite telling, aren't they?
The only thing I'll say is at some point you're going to look older and I'm still going to be a woman.